economics. The concept of today class is the classical theory of employment or classical theory of income determination. In the exam, they can ask the classical theory, right? Critically examine the classical theory of employment or classical theory of income determination. So I think 1 year they can ask critically examine the classical theory of employment. So what is the classical theory? So that means entire output and income or output or employment, how it is defined, right? So what is the classical theory? Generally in an economics, there are two approaches to discuss how the output and income is determined. Okay. So that means previous class we discussed that national income concept, right? Various concept of the national income. That is one question which I already discussed. The continuation of that, if we know the total national income, sometimes the national income or the output was changed or the due to the change in the level of different factors. So what are the factors to determine the entire the national income and entire the output? Right. In that case, there are two classical theories. One is the classical approach, one is the classical approach, another one is Keynesian approach, which we are discussing. So today we are going to discuss the classical theory approach. Who is the classical economist? The classical economist, that is J.B. Say, Adam first, the father of the economist, Adam Smith, you know very well, right? So Adam Smith, J.B. Say, J.S. Mill, and other classical economists. And what the theory? The classical economists stress the free market mechanism, right? How it is work in the market to change in the level of total output and employment, to change in the any factors. Okay, so if you are discussing this theory, entire theory, what the classical theory is, right? So here you can suppose to start with the term the classical, right? So this is the book of Richard T. Froyen, the record by the Delhi University. Okay, so the first term, the classical, is the period dominated by the work Adam Smith, that is the Wealth of Nations, 1776, and David Ricardo, Principles of Political Economy, 1817, and John Stuart Mill, J.S. Mill, Principles of Political Economy. The second term, neoclassical period, Alfred Marshall. Okay, there are three terms. One is the classical, another one is neoclassical period, another one is modern period. Okay, in economics. Classical approaches, the classical period, that is the Adam Smith, David Ricardo, J.B. Say, J.S. Mill, and so on. Neoclassical economist, Alfred Marshall. The theory in his Principles of Economics, 1920, ACP2. These are the classical economists. And another one, the modern economist, that is the Keynes and Milton Friedman, Irving Fisher. These are the modern economists. All are, they discuss about what is the output and employment to determine the different factors. What is the point? So if you're talking about what is the classical revolution of the classical theory is, right? So in the classical theory, it emerged that the body of economic doctrine known as mercantilism. So generally what the classical theory is, first we can go for the direct theory actually. This is the theory. Okay. The classical economist has stressed the free market mechanism. This is the word. What the classical theory? The classical theory is to describe how the income and output is fluctuated or the determine the factors are. Right? So generally classical economist has to stress that the free market mechanism would work to provide markets for any goods that were produced. Got it? That means whatever it is the market is freely exchange for goods one to another good. They can produce freely, free market mechanism. Okay? Free market mechanism. So the classical doctrine was that aggregate production is given, the quantity of output will generate a sufficient demand for that output, that is by the factors of production. So the classical economist has to stress the aggregate demand. What is the aggregate demand? The availability of the demand for the goods and services in the economy. That is the output, you can say. Right? The classical economist has to describe the entire the output or the entire the aggregate demand is, that is the sum of the demand for goods and services in the economy. Right. So already maybe we learned that what is the production function, right? Production function is the functional relationship between, right, output and input factors. Output is what is the production. Input factors means what are the factors to influence to produce the goods and services. So entire the theory, the classical theory is how the output or the production is taken place. What are the factors to influence the aggregate demand or the aggregate output? So what are the assumptions or what are the two features of the classical theory is? So these are the two theories. Dear students, you can follow me, right? The classical theory assumptions. There are two assumptions here. One is the classical economics stressed the role of real as opposed to the monetary factors in the determined output and employment. That means the classical economist has to determine there is only one factor, that is labor. Because initial stage, classical economy means 1930s. 1930s means, right, in the initial stage there is no other factors to influence more. What is the point? So in the initial stage 1930s, labor is the only factor to influence the entire output or entire aggregate income. Got it the point? So that means in the initial we have four factors. We already discussed the previous chapter. What are the factors? Labor, land, capital, organization. Got it? So labor is the one factor, land is another factor, capital, organization. Out of the four, in the initial classical economist has to stress the opposite to monetary factors. Here it is written clearly. Opposite to the monetary factors to determine the output and employment means opposite of monetary. What are the monetary factors? Money, capital, organization, and remaining factors are, that is the monetary factors. Monetary factors means the money related factors. Money related factors not in classical economist. Money related factors in Keynesian factors section, Keynesian theory factors. What are the factors? What factors to influence the output and all? Other factors are capital, organization, and so on. Only the one factor, that is the labor is the only one factor to determine the entire output and employment. That is the one first assumption. Simply written, you have to note out the point that classical economists stress the real factor. Okay, the real factor is, that is the labor. Labor is the only one factor to determine the entire output and employment. One point. Second point is the classical economists stress the self-adjusting tendency of the economy. Like, what is the self-adjusting tendency of the economy? The government policies to ensure an adequate demand for output were considered by classical economists to be unnecessary and generally harmful. What is the self-adjusted tendencies? In an initial stage, in the classical economist, right, there is no other factor to influence in the economy. Only one factor, the labor. According to that labor, okay, availability of the labor resources, you have to produce more output or less output. That is self-adjusted in the economy. So we turn that according to these two assumptions. Like, what are the assumptions? Classical economists stress the real factor, that is the labor. Second factor is self-adjusted tendencies of the economy. According to that, the classical economists stress the relationship between the central relationship in the classical model is aggregate production function. So that entire aggregate production or entire the output is defined by only one labor, other factors are remaining constant. Got it the point? So the classical economist has to define the production function is, it summarizes that relationship between total inputs and total output assuming a given technology. So the classical economist production function is y is equal to function of k intercept n. So here y is the output, where y is equals to output, k bar is the stock of capital. Stock of capital means in the initial stage there is a minimum level of the investment, like a plant, equipment, infrastructure, whatever you can say. And n is what? Quantity of homogeneous labor input. What is the point? This is the one factor in classical economy. That is also we can call as real factor. What is the point? So n is the real factor, that is the homogeneous labor input. Homogeneous means in terms of the quality, in terms of the work, in terms of everything is same. All the labors are equal. That is the homogeneous of labor input. So K is constant. Whatever it is, the plant, equipment, the capital is constant. Only the one to change, that is the labor input to change, the output will change. That is, you can call it classical production function. So the classical theory is the short-run period theory. Why it is short-run period? In the initial stage, only one labor we are using, short-run period. In the long run, maybe you can use other factors. But we are talking about in the initial stage, that the classical theory in 1930s, so that the entire output is depend upon the homogeneous of labor. So more labor will produce more output. What is the output will taking place? What is the output is change? Sometimes it is increasing, sometimes it is declining, sometimes it is diminishing, depend upon the labor productivity, right, and availability of the homogeneous of labor. So the short-run theory is the classical theory is the short-run period. The output varies slowly with variation in the labor input drawn from the fixed population. According to the population, the output will change in the level of, right, the labor inputs. So here you can discuss in here. So there is a table 3.1, right, 3.1, that fundamental relationship between change in the labor input and resulting change in the output, holding other factor like capital stock constant. So that is the y is equal to f k bar n. Okay, so according to that equation, y is equal to function of k bar n. That is the production function of the classical theory. How you can determine that labor to change in the output is. Got it? So this is the table which indicate that the relationship between the output and input variables. Got it? So here the output is y. Here the input is n. How to change the labor input to change the output is, that is the production function of the short run theory. I hope students you can understand, right? So in the short run, initial stage, if this is A to B, A to G, this is the some combination, okay? Which we are taking in line A, line B, this is all the combination. In line A, you can look into how many labor and what is the output is. And there is another column that is the MPN, that is the marginal productivity of labor. What is this? Marginal productivity of labor, MPN. MPN is marginal productivity of labor is the rate at which to change in the one labor to change in the output. How much to change the labor to change in the level of output. That is you can call MPN. That is delta y delta M. Here it is written. The change in output given a change in labor. Simply say MPN. Okay. One by one we are discussing in this table. So first, if initial stage zero labor, if zero labor, output is zero. Obviously, we don't have labor factor. Okay, and there is no output. If you hide the labor means we have the labor, 1 unit of labor. How much you produce the output? Suppose 10 units of the production was taking place. 10 units, right? We are producing. What is the point? And if you hide the one more unit of labor here, 2 unit labor we are put it, and then you produce the 20. First, keep it with these two lines, okay? Two columns. And if you hide the third unit of labor, what is the output? The output is increasing 28. Okay, obviously. And fourth labor, the output is increasing 33. And if you had the fifth labor, the output is increasing 34. Up to fifth labors, the output is increasing trend. What is the point? Earlier 0, 10, 20, 28, 33, 34. Beyond that, in the initial stage, if you use the or if you hide the one more unit of labor input, the output will be declining. Why? Because initial stage, whenever you are working, you are produce more output. Certain period of hours or the certain period of time, you are producing the output will automatically decline. Certain period. Same thing here also. If you increase the one more unit of labor, right? So the output will automatically decline. How it is? Suppose here you can look at it. Okay, how it is happening? See, look at it. The output is increasing, but in the initial stage, output is increasing at constant level, and after that, the output is increasing at diminishing returns at a decreasing level, and output is declining totally negative. That output. Okay, look at it here. Look at it here. In line A, 0 unit of labor head, the total output is 0. In line B, if you hire the 1 unit of labor, N is head, the total output is 10 units. What is the marginal productivity? Delta Y, the change in the one labor to another labor is 1 to 2, the change in is 1 labor, and output is 0 to 10, the change is 10. So delta Y upon by delta N. Delta Y what? This is the change in the level of output. 10 minus 0, that is the 10 upon by 1 minus 0, 1. So 10 by 1, that is the 10. 10 is what? MPN, marginal productivity of labor. Got it? So this is 10. And third labor, so second labor you can look at, second labor, they can produce 20 units of the output. Okay. So what is the difference is 20 to 10, 10 only. And here only one labor. If we had the 1 unit labor, the output will same 10 only. The change in the output is 10 only. So MPN is also 10. How it is 10? 10 upon by 1. Okay. So here the output is increasing at constant level. So this is the 10 10. So constant level it is increasing. This is MPN. And third labor, if you use the another more unit of labor, you produce the 28. So what is the differences between these two? Earlier 20, now 28. So 28 minus 20, so 8. So 8 is the MPN. So 28 8 upon by 1, that is the 8. So it is explained here. Here it is explained. On C, 2 workers are here, total output is 20. So MPN delta Y by delta N is 20 minus 1 upon by 1, so 10 upon by 10. And third labor, if you have the third worker here, so total output is 28, so 8 upon by 1, so 8. Okay, so this is the what? Area of diminishing returns to scale. What is the area? So here you can look at it. Diminishing return what? The output is diminishing. See, look at it. Increasing, the output is increasing, but earlier it is decreasing level of decreasing level, it is increasing. Now it is decreasing level, output is increasing. Sometimes some students confuse that, sir, the output is increasing. Dear student, I can say that one more unit of labor input food can increase. Earlier output is 10 to 20, the difference is 10. 10 to 8, 10 to 28, 8 difference. 28 to 3, 33, only 5 difference. So this difference is this MPN. So what is happening? Output is increasing, but that output is earlier constant level. That after the diminishing, after that is going to negative. Why it is negative? So if you had the 5 unit of labor, 34 you can output produce. So 34 minus 33 and 1. If you had beyond that labor, 60 unit of labor, so the output will automatically diminish or negative. 34 to 32. So 32 minus 34 minus 2 here. So this is what we are discussing. MPN. What is MPN? The change in output given a change in labor is, so it is diminishing. So what we are concluding here? So this is the diagram. According to that table, okay. According to that table, according to the classical theory, if you hire the labor here, right, output is produced this much level. If you hire the one more unit of labor input, the output is increasing. In the initial stage, the output is increasing at constant level, and if you after beyond the some labor, the output is diminishing. If you increase one more unit of labor inputs after 5 labor, right? So that output is going to negative. That we are discussing here. Okay, suppose x-axis is, dear students, we discuss that labor inputs, that is also you can call as employment. Okay, employment means the number of homogeneous of labor. How many members we are using? How many members we are employed? Got it? How many members we are employed? Employed, how many members we are working as a labor, homogeneous of labor. So employment is increasing, the output is increasing. Initial stage it is increasing at constant level. So that's why we can say that this is the constant returns to scale. What is the constant returns? The change in the variable factor to change in the level of output factor. So that is the constant returns to scale. So this is constant because increasing level of labor output is also constant level it is increasing. And one more unit of labor input is increasing, the output will increasing at decreasing level, that diminishing returns. Okay, how? There is a number where in this table. According to that only, according to this table, we are rather that graph actually. Okay, labor, this is the x-axis, you can take this, and y-axis output you can take one diagram. Second diagram, labor, and this MPN. Okay, what is the, so look at it here. So first table is the production function, right? Short-term production function we are draw. Short-term production function is the functional relationship between the output and labor input. Labor input is, so this x-axis is, output is y-axis. So the functional relationship between output and input factors. So input factor is homogeneous product here. Look at y is equal to function of k bar n. So this equation. Dear student, this diagram, this equation, it shows that the short-term production function according to the classical theory approach. According to the classical theory approach, the production function y is equal to function of k bar n. So y is the output, n is the labor input. So more unit of labor, the output will increase, but initial stage constant level, after diminishing, after that negative. This is the negative, right? So according to this, you can draw this another diagram, marginal productivity of labor. Okay, so x-axis you can denote it to labor inputs, and y-axis you can denote it to MPN. What is MPN? The change in output to change in labor. What is the point? So how it is? 1 unit of labor, the output is 10. So that's why B is the 10. Because A is nothing, because A is 0 labor, 0 MPN. So that's why A we cannot denote here. Got it the point? So 1 unit of labor, 10 units of the output, right? And second unit of labor, right? Again 10 unit of the output production, right? And third unit of labor, 8. And fourth unit of labor, 5. And this 50 unit of labor, 1. Okay, and 60 unit of labor is going to -2. That's why this diagram is going to negative situation, negative. So they look at here, this is the MPN curve. MPN means the marginal productivity of labor. The marginal productivity of labor, here it is written. Marginal productivity of labor. Sorry, some network issue. So we are talking about here, right? We are talking about what is the marginal productivity of labor. So what is the marginal productivity of labor? The addition to total output due to addition of a unit of labor. That means how much to change in the level of labor to change in the output. How much if you increase one more unit of labor, output is also increasing that much level of the output. So that additional unit of labor you can increase, the additional unit of output is change. That you can call marginal productivity of labor. Why we are discussing this? Because the classical theory to determine that aggregate demand, right, aggregate supply, where both aggregate demand and aggregate supply equal one particular point, that is you can call it classical theory of income determination equilibrium point. So here we are discussing classical theory of income determination demand curve, labor demand curve. This is the marginal productivity of labor curve. So how you can say labor demand? So this is the labor demand. Okay. Suppose if you are talking about this entire this one, you can say that the availability of the labor and how it is production was taking place. So employment is what? This is the availability of the labor supply. Okay. So how it is production was taking place. Coming to the point, what is the labor demand is? What is the labor demand is, student? So labor demand curve you can discuss about how much the people are work on the basis of wage rate. So labor demand is depend upon what is the wage rate is. Wage rate, how you can denote it? So this is the wage rate, W by P. Okay, W by P is the wage rate. Why it is wage rate? Just you can come to the point here. Why is W by P is the wage rate? Because in the initial stage, right, firms are perfect competitive market. What is the perfect competitive market in the microeconomics we studied? What is the perfect competitive market? Large numbers of the buyers and sellers, they can produce homogeneous product. So their goal is maximum profit, maximize their profit. What is the point? So in the perfect competition, all the producers are the price takers. Whatever the price they must have to take, they must have to accept it. So that same thing, the classical theory is applicable in the perfect competition. Whatever it is, the price is available, they must have to take. Price means whatever the wage is available, the labor must have to take the labor. Okay, homogeneous labor, they can take the wage rate at the level of the price. That is W by P means the wage rate at the level of the price. W by P. What is the point? So what is the marginal cost? Marginal cost of the ith form is MC. Okay, so equal to money divided by the marginal productive labor form. So we define the output produced by the instrument unit of the labor employee, MPN. So how you can divide the MPN? So marginal cost. The producer are always looking into what is his cost of the production and what is the wage rate and what is the labor production. What is the point? So MC is equal to W by MPN. So we can define that equation. So P is what? P is equal to marginal cost. Marginal cost means whatever the cost was taking place at the level of the production. So that is equal to whatever the price of the particular product is. Got it the point? So P is equal to MC. So MC is equal to W by MPN. If you replace the P is equal to MC, so MC is equal to P. So P is equal to W by MPN. So finally MPN is equals to W by P. So MPN means the marginal productivity of labor is depends upon W by P. If you're still confused, don't confuse the students. MP, I'm discussing about this diagram only. So MPN is equals to W by P. Why W by P? The labor which they are produced the output on the basis of whatever he is earning the wage rate. Wage rate means W by P. Wage rate W by P means the wage rate at the level of the price. MPN is equal to W by P. Okay, that is the labor demand curve. You can say labor demand curve. So look at here. So MPN is equal to what is the labor demand curve? The MPN is the labor demand curve. So if the wage rate is 3 rupees, the people are working at this much level. So 8 is the MPN. MPN means wage rate. What is the point? So employment is here, x-axis is, y-axis is real wage rate, right? So at the level of the wage rate A, there are 3 laborers they are willing to work their work. What is the point? So at the level of wage rate 10, there are 2 workers there here are they are working willing to work. That is 1 and 2. If the wage rate is 5, there are 4 workers that are willing to work. The wage rate is 2, this much level. If wage rate is 1, wage rate is 0, no one is working. If beyond there is no one is willing to work because wage rate. According to wage rate, they're here. What is the point? So the real wage rate and employment is negative relationship. More employment, the wage rate will automatically decline. So output will more employment, the output will automatically increase. Certain level of the labor, the output will go into diminution. I hope you students are understand. So labor demand curve is, what is the slope of the labor demand curve? The slope of the labor demand curve is left to right downward slope. Left to right downward slope. Here we are discussing labor demand curve. Labor demand curve means the classical theory demand curve. The classical demand curve theory is MPN. MPN what? Marginal productivity of labor. Marginal productivity of labor is the wage rate, is the demand curve. Labor demand curve. So that is equal to W by P. That is the real wage rate. Suppose we are the laborers, right? Suppose we are the laborers, we are servicing something, we are producing something, we have to get the some wage rate. That wage rate is always to calculate at the level of the price. Because price is sometimes it change. According to the price, our wage rate is fixed. That is the point. So that's why wage rate change, labor input will automatically. Labor input change, the output will automatically change. So finally, the labor demand curve is downward slope left to right. This is what we are concluding. Next, labor supply. What is the labor supply curve? The labor supply curve, it depends upon availability of the labor. So labor is the only service supplied by the individual worker. Who is the owners of the labor? We are the laborers. Okay, individual worker. Each and every individual worker have their individual right labor sources. Suppose you are the labor, I am the one labor, another one is the labor. We are the also one labor because we are provide the services, right? Like that. So in the classical economists assumed that individual attempt to maximize the satisfaction. So this is the classical economist has to stress that or to define that individual laborers has to maximize their utilities of the satisfaction depends upon their real income. So the level of satisfaction or level of utility is depends upon their positively on both real income. What is this real income? The real income is getting income levels. Satisfaction, how you can get satisfaction? More working, more wage rate, more real income, more satisfaction. That is the only. How he get the more income? He working more hours. If he work more hours, he get more income. So more level of the labor input, you can get the more satisfaction. Okay. But sometimes, certain period of time, the labor, certain period out of the 20, we have 24 hours, right? Out of the 24 hours, how many hours we are working in real life? Maybe 8 hours or 10 hours or 12 hours. Depends upon the laborer. Got it the point. So out of the 24 hours, how many hours you are working? According to law, according to labor laws, so if you the worker has to work only 8 hours per day, you must have to work. Beyond that, they can work. They can get the extra wages or extra bonus or benefits. The minimum, the 8 hours is the minimum hours you can work. Okay. So if you want to more utility, more real income, they must have to more hours. So out of 24, 8 hours working means, what is the point? Out of 24, 8 hours working means remaining how many hours is the rest hour? That is 18 hours. 89, 16 hours, sorry. 16 hours leisure hour. 8 hours is working hours, 16 hours is the leisure hour. So the trade-off means if you work more, you must have to giving up of leisure hour. So the trade-off between leisure hour and working hours. So that's why, therefore, the trade-off between two goals because income is increased by work and with reduced availability of the leisure time. That means if more income, you work more hours. That means less leisure hours. If you more leisure hours, less work, less income. Got it? So the direct relationship between working hours and the work income, indirect relationship between leisure hours and income. So more working, more income, less leisure hours, less working, less income, more leisure hours. That we are discussing here. Okay. So suppose example also they can discussing in this book. I will Richard T. Proyan book you can refer. Okay, soft copy is available, dear students. So how you can explain in the classical theory actually? They ask the 12 marks question. How you can explain? First, the classical economists are Adam Smith, J.B. J.S. Mill. So the classical economists trust that free market mechanism. There are two assumptions. After that, right, based on the two assumptions, the production function is aggregate production function defined. So the table, the figure. Now we are taking aggregate, labor demand curve and labor supply curve. So this is the way we can write it in that exam. Okay, dear students. So labor demand and labor supply we are discussing. So we are discussing labor supply curve. So suppose example in individual J allocate 24 hours period between leisure hours and working hours. NSJ. NS means N means homogeneous of labor. S means supply. Homogeneous of supply of labor at a J form. J means there is institution or organization, whatever you can say. Individual supply of labor. So figure 3.3. So there is a figure here. You can look at it. Now you can understand easily. Okay. So this is the figure. What is the figure here? the trade-off between income, leisure, hours. What is the point? Second table, labor supply curve. How you can draw the supply curve? That is we are discussing. Okay. So we are describe the labor supply curve on the basis of the relationship between income, working hours, and leisure hours. Got it? So according to that, how his real income or wage rate is. Suppose example. So this is what U1, U2, U3. This is his indifference curves. Maybe microeconomics people are studied. The curve length you can say. The curve length you can say indifference curve. U1, U2, U3. Here the explanation here you can get. So the figure 3.3 here I can see. Here figure you can see. I can highlight it here, dear students. So look at it here. Figure 3.3 illustrates the choice facing the individual. On the horizontal axis, measure the hours of leisure per day, that is x-axis, and the maximum of hours is 24 hours. The horizontal intercept, where the individual chooses no labor, all leisure hours is 24 hours. The number of hours work are therefore 24 minus the number of hours of leisure selected. Okay, if this combination you can look at here. So x-axis you can total 24 hours means 24 hours, 0 means there is no zero wage. That means out of 24 hours, 24 hours is leisure hours. There is no working hours. There is no leisure. More 24 hours is leisure hours. That's why wage rate is 0. Okay. If more leisure hour, if his leisure hour is 18 hours, the leisure hour. Okay. If leisure hour is 18 hours means how many working hours, dear students? Out of the 24, 18 hours is the leisure hours means 6 hours is the working hours. If you work 6 hours, 18 hours is leisure hours, what is his wage rate? His wage rate is 48. Got it the point? So why it is 48? Because out of 24, the wage is 2 rupees at the time, at the level of the price, W by P. If the wage is 2 rupees, got it the point? So the people are working 6 hours, 18 hours is leisure hours. U1 what? This is the trade-off between U1 is the indifference curve. What is the indifference curve? The combination of the two goods, right, or two variables which we are giving the same level of satisfaction. Indifference curve microeconomics we have studied. The indifference curve shows the different combination of the two variables given the same level of satisfaction. So here the satisfaction is getting because 6 hours is working, 18 hours is the leisure hour. So you get the wage is 2 rupees. So 48 is his real income. What is the point? So again next point. Point A is so here. Next, if he increase more working hours, that means more working hours means leisure hours automatically decline. Suppose there is a 16 hours leisure hour. Earlier 18 hours, the wage rate is 2. Now they reduce the leisure hour 18 to 16. So this line. They reduce the leisure hour 18 to 16 so that he's get the more working hours, right? Out of 24, 16 is the leisure hour means remaining 8 hours. Got it? 8 hours working. So more working hour, you get the real income is more because wage rate automatically increase. Wage rate is 3 rupees, so that we can get the wage 72 rupees. This is the real wage rate. Again, out of 24, 15. Out of 24, 15 means 9 hours is working. So here 6 hours working, 8 hours working, 9 hours working. And leisure hour, 18 hours leisure hour, 16 hours leisure hour, 15 hours leisure hour. So more leisure hours, got it? Less working hours, you get the wage rate is this much. So more working hours, more wage rate. Here 6 working hours, so that wage rate is 48. And here working 8 and 72. Here 9, so 96. So the trade-off between what is the positive relation between the income and working hours? Working hours are real income, positive relation. More working hours, more wage rate. And real wage rate and leisure hour, more income, less leisure hour, more working hours. So according to wage rate, 2 rupees wage rate. So working hours is 6. Where? So this line. What is the point? So this all combination A, B, C. A what? So this is his wage rate line, and this is the indifference to interact particular point here. And another wage rate is 3. So his real income is 72. The indifference curve is here. The combination is here, and another combination is here. So A, B, C is the combination of the real wage rate and working and leisure hours. So if the wage rate is 2, here hours of the work per day. Earlier 18 hours leisure hour. Here the working hours is 6. What is the point? So 6 working hour is getting 2 wage rate. Point A, this combination. And his working hours is 8. Okay. So 3 is the real wage rate. Working hours is 9. 4 is the wage rate. So more working hour, more wage rate. So positive relation between more labor working hours, more wage rate. That means more employment will increasing, wage rate will automatically increase. Right? The trade-off between leisure hours and income. Got it? So leisure hours and wage rate negative. Increasing level of leisure hour, decreasing level of wage rate. Increasing level of working hours, real wage rate is decreasing. So what is the supply curve? So more working hours, more wage rate. So supply curve is upward slope. Upward slope. So what will have to explain here? So where there is a, so this is the equilibrium of classical theory. Dear student, just note out. So what is the classical theory equilibrium? The classical theory equilibrium is where there is a demand, labor demand and labor supply are equal particular point. That is the equilibrium of output and employment. So the following relationship have been derived. So this is the production function, this is the labor demand curve. For the supply curve, this is the output, right? Output is y is equal to function of k bar n. In the initial stage we are discussing. So this is the labor demand. ND means homogeneous of labor. Got it? Homogeneous of labor. What is the homogeneous of labor? ND, labor demand curve. So labor demand curve depends upon wage rate. More wage rate, more demand were demanded. Okay. And NS what? Labor supply curve. So labor supply curve is equals to same. That is also wage rate. W by P. So NS, what is, where is the equilibrium point? There is a aggregate demand and aggregate supply equal particular point. That is you can call as classical theory equilibrium point. Equilibrium level of output. So see, look at here. NS is equal to ND. Okay, determine output, employment, and real wage are equal particular point. That is the NS is equal to ND. So what we'll have to explain here? So this is the point. The equilibrium level of labor input to equilibrium level of output is given by the production function. So that figure is here. Here the figure. Okay, this we need to explain. What is the classical theory equilibrium? The classical theory equilibrium point is point A by where the aggregate demand curve equals to aggregate supply curve at particular point A. So that is the classical theory equilibrium point. So in this equilibrium point, the equilibrium level of employment is, or you can say the employment is N0, the output is W by P 0. This is the real base. Okay, so this is what? The demand and supply curve. Okay, the supply curve is upward slope, that is the NS curve. Here is also at the level of the labor N0, the wage rate is W by P. Got it? So ND is equal to function of W by P, that is the demand curve, and NS is equal to function of W by P. So both are equal particular point. This is the equivalent level of employment. So at this labor, N0 means employment labor. What is the output is? So this is at the level of the N0 of the labor input, the output is, okay, the output is Y0. The output is okay. So what is the classical theory equilibrium point? At the level of the demand and labor equivalent particular point, that point you can call as, right. So at the level of the employment or the labor input, the output is Y0. So this is what? This is the classical theory of labor input and labor output. Okay. So dear students, this is the answer what we are supposed to write on exam. If they can ask the question like what is the classical theory of income, critically examine the classical theory of employment. So you have to write it this answer. Okay. So this two diagram. Sometimes this equilibrium point to change, either the labor demand curve change, or either the labor supply curve change, the equilibrium change. Okay. So that means here the equilibrium point, labor demand and labor supply. Sometimes labor demand change. Labor demand means demand curve is upward shift, demand curve is leftward shift. The equilibrium automatically change. So wage rate is at the level of E. So anyone can change, the equilibrium change. So this is what the classical theory. The classical theory only one labor, one factor only. One factor to change, the output to change. That is the labor. So labor improves, that is the employment you can say. Employment change, the labor output change, and the equilibrium level will automatically change. So this is the today's class, and tomorrow we will discuss that Keynesian theory, modern theory of income determination. That is you can refer the another book, Don Busby's theory. This is the book actually. After this Keynes theory, we are discussing ISLM model. That is also more important. Okay. So yeah, I think I stop the class now today, and we go for any doubts and queries. I can check your question and answer chat box so that I can answer you. If you have any doubt and any queries, please drop the message. Okay, so that I can answer you. Yeah. Hello, sir. Can you please एबल बर्नैन के रेफरेंस बुक पीडीएफ कोर्स, ये वाला लास्ट टाइम मैं भेज दिया आपको, मटेरियल शेयर कर, ठीक है बेटा, अभी बर्नैन से पहले वाला ना. Do you have any queries? Please let you know here. Yeah. Okay, student, do you have any queries? You can answer here. Otherwise, we can discuss other topics which you are remaining topics. Okay? Yeah. Is there any doubt? Yeah. So, if you have any doubt, just I can continue this. Okay. Uh, so, up to this, we are discussing classical theory, right? The classical theory of income determination, where it is if today I couldn't take that board actually because yeah, we'll discuss this theoretical part. Okay. So this is what the classical theory income determination. In the classical theory income determination, so there is a demand for labor curve, that is this ND, MP and ND curve, and demand for supply curve. This is the NS. NS equals to W by P, and ND is equals to function of W by P, MPN. So both are equivalent particular point, that is you can call as wage rate. Okay, at that wage rate, the employment is taking place, that is the labor was taking place this much level. Okay, this labor was change, wage rate change. Sometimes demand change, the wage rate is change. Sometimes supply change, the wage rate will automatically change. Suppose example, earlier curve is MPN 1, right? This is the one. Okay, if labor demand is increasing, if you hire the more labor. The labor demand curve is increasing. Demand increasing means producers has hired the more labor. They can produce the more output. So that they must have to increase the wage rate. More demand of the labor, they must have to get the more wage rate. So labor demand curve is shifted to rightward. Rightward shift to the labor curve, that will reflect to the wage rate is shifted to this much level, W2. Got it? If supply curve is constant. If right, wage rate is more, labor employed is increased one more unit of labor. So the demand curve is shifted to rightward. Then what will happen? The wage rate is this much level. What is the point? So N1 is the only one point which they have produced the more labor input, but labor demand is increasing, but this zero level of the labor, because supply is also same level, the change. Whatever the demand is happening, the same level of the supply is also same. That means there is no change in the supply and demand, so that wage rate will automatically increasing this much to this much, W1 to W2 and W2 to W3. So this is what we are discussing. Okay. So this is the aggregate supply function, aggregate demand function we already discussed, right? So what is the classical aggregate supply curve according to that? Okay, so the classical aggregate supply is always constant in the classical theory. Why? Because whatever the availability of the supply, right? Whether the wage rate is increasing or decreasing, the supply is constant in the initial stage. Okay, in the modern approach, in the neoclassical approach, output will increase to increase the level of labor supply. What is the point? Other factors will influence. Other factors means the land increasing, capital more increase, and other factors are increasing, so that automatically it will be increased. So, according to classical theory, what is the aggregate supply curve? The aggregate supply curve is, so this is the whole, right? Horizontal axis, right? This is vertical axis. Okay, the vertical classical aggregate supply curve reflect that higher the value of the price level, require the proportionate higher level of the money available. Sometimes they can ask the short answer question to the students in this point. That's why I'm discussing here. Okay, that's why I'm discussing here. Okay, yeah, I stop the class now. So yeah, do you have any doubt? Let me know. Yeah, I think Rajendra ji.